Karen thought I didn't understand her language.
Ha ha ha.
I did. Hello guys, I'm Griffin D, and today we're covering 5 entitled parent stories. Please consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. You will date my daughter, or I'll get you fired. So for some context, I'm a 17-year-old male and I work at a Segway tour company. It's actually really fun. I get to ride Segways around the city and talk to people, and get paid to do it. Plus the tipping isn't bad. So anyway, there was a tour booked a couple of days ago and I came in about 20 minutes early to answer emails and get everything ready. The group shows up, mother and daughter, and that's when things get interesting. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by telling you what EP and me stand for, but D equals daughter and FBI equals Federal Bureau of Investigation. Just for some useful info, EP and D come in and I check them in. Me, alright, I have some waivers for you to sign. D, how old are you? D, 16. Me, okay, then you don't need to sign a waiver. I ask this because if kids are younger than 18, their parents signed the waivers for them, but EP only heard me say the first part, not when I said D didn't need to sign a waiver, so she thought I was just asking her daughter how old she was. This was probably what started it all. We go on the tour, and while I'm giving my spiel, EP keeps interrupting me to tell me stuff about D and find if we are compatible. Me, and so this non-profit organization opened in. EP, are you in college? Me, haha no, I'm a junior in high school. I'm usually pretty free with info about myself on tours because it helps keep people relaxed and initiates conversations during lulls in the tour, plus it helps with tipping. EP, oh, D is also a junior. She is an artist. Stuff like this keeps happening throughout the tour, and every time, D gets redder and redder. My mom does this to where she just tells random mall attendants about me. So I know what D is going through and I feel her pain. At the end of the tour, I tell the two of them that they have 15 minutes to go around the town and then they can meet me back at the Segway place. I get back and start getting things set up for their return. They roll in, pardon the pun, and I take their Segways to start charging them. EP, so what do you think of my daughter? Me, pardon me, what? EP, I saw you checking her out during the tour. Are you gonna ask her out? D, mum, stop. Me, Mom, I just recently got out of a relationship and I'm really not looking for anything right now. EP, what? Me, huh? EP, is my daughter not good enough for you? Me, no, that's not it. I just said that I just got out of a relation. EP, you are going to date my daughter and that's final. Me, you can't tell me what to do. I'm not your kid, and if I don't want to date your daughter I don't have to. Besides, you haven't even asked her if she wants to date me. D, yeah, I don't want to date him. Me, see, EP, I'm going to call your boss and tell him about your terrible customer service. You're never going to work in city name again. Me, pulling out my phone. Alright, you want to call him and explain this situation. How you're trying to force me to date your daughter and get me fired for saying no. Then I guess the absurdity of the situation finally sunk in, and her face transitioned from pure rage to slight confusion. EP, wait, maybe I don't want to. Me, no, let's call him. Start to go through my contacts, and press my boss's name. Let's have this conversation. EP, I don't think that's a good idea. Phone starts ringing. EP, D, let's go. EP runs out the door. D turns to me and says I'm sorry, and then follows her mum. I hang up the phone before my boss answers and start cleaning the Segways. I have some more stories from my work. You'll tell me if you want to hear more. Wait, you are rugged, but you're a girl. Okay, a bit to start with. I'm a freelance hiking and snowmobile guide on the island of Svalbard, Norwegian Arctic, and have to deal with all sorts of people on a day-to-day basis. I'm not super sure if this guy still qualifies as an entitled dad, since his son must have been at least 40, but here we go. A few months ago I was guiding a trip by myself. We only send one guide out when the group is small, so I went to the hotels to pick up my guests, an Italian couple and this Saudi Arabian father, ED, son, S. combo. I walked into their hotel, introduced myself and got everybody to sit in the car. When ED opened the passenger seat door, sat down and looked at me confused. ED, oh sorry, this is your seat, right? Me, no, you can sit there if you want. It's easier to drive from the other side anyway. I always try to crack a joke or two, to break the ice. Lots of people are nervous when having to drive a snowmobile the first time. He looked at me slightly more confused, but I assumed it's only a language thing. Brought them back to HQ and gave them a full safety briefing and overview on a map on where we'd be going. After that I got them dressed and told them to wait outside, because our suits are made to keep you warm at -30°C, so inside a building you quickly start to melt. Once I was dressed I went to meet them outside. Oh, you're coming with us on the tour? Me? I hope so, since I'm your guide. I had told them in the briefing the usual, hey, my name is Kat and I'll be your guide for today. Is that a gun? Me? Yes, sir. But don't worry, she's not yet loaded. And S looked at each other confused, and we all started walking towards the snowmobiles so I could give them a small briefing on how to drive them. The Italians had told me they have been driving before, so I decided to place them in the end of the group and and S in the front. Everybody got to drive their own vehicle, because out of experience it's always better for the more experienced guests to be in the back, since they might have to speed up here and there to fill a gap. But where is the guide? Me, here, I'm just in front of you, a proud 1.77 meters. Had to miss. But you're female. Guides can't be female. Me? About 50% of our guides are girls here on Svalbard. It's not that uncommon. Don't worry, we girls are just as good as our male colleagues. I think my father wants to know, who will operate the gun? Me? Well, let's hope we don't even have to take it out of the boot. But if we have, I am trained and licensed to shoot. No. Me? No. You are a woman. Women can't shoot guns. It's not safe. Me? Excuse me. Guys, if you don't want me as your guide, that's fine with me. Go back into HQ, take the suit off and tell our receptionist to call you a taxi. If you don't feel safe, that's up to you. But I am the guide for this trip today, and if you want to head out, you'll have to deal with me. But if we don't go, we want our money back. Me? You can try. But I bet you that you won't get a penny because it's your own decision to not come along. I will go if you get a male guide for us. Me? I won't get anybody else to join. You've signed the agreement that I'm in charge of this tour and you will listen to what I tell you to do and not to do. I didn't sign anything. Me? Yes. About 15 minutes ago, before you got dressed, I saw you sign it. Then walks off back into HQ. And the Italian stayed. Called his dad. Found out would not come with a woman. And the Italians drove with me. We saw reindeer, sea ice, a polar bear in the distance, no need for the riffle, and in general had a great time. After the tour, came to me to apologize for his behavior and called me a good girl guide. My boss heard that and still mocks me with it today equals. Brings her 4 kids to an adult-only wedding. I attended an adult-only wedding for a co-worker a few days ago. The actual ceremony was in a very small church, so it was mostly family and close friends, but the reception was for roughly 250 people. The reception was at a very elegant hotel ballroom, not child-friendly in any way. Crystal stemware, expensive linens on the table, etc. About half hour into the reception, a commotion started that made everyone stare. Is arguing with the wedding planner loudly. Me being the nosy broad that I am, inched closer to hear. Turns out brought her 4 young children to the reception even though the invitations clearly stated adults only. The insisted that her kids, I am guessing at ages, but the oldest one looked 8ish and the youngest was under a year old, were super well behaved, so it was fine. Now keep in mind this was around 7:30 p.m. WP was having none of it. She insisted that children were not allowed and she had to leave. In a last-ditch effort to get admitted, shouted at the bride. The bride went over and listened to her for a moment and then said in a syrupy sweet voice, "Of course you can come in, but your children cannot." She turned on her heel and went back to her new husband. Flipped a nut, yelling about how she was invited, couldn't find a babysitter, etc. 3 of the groomsmen escorted her and her kids to the door. When Karen thinks I can't understand her language. I took my kid, 7F, to an animal sanctuary. They announced that they would be feeding a baby sloth at XYZ time, so my kiddo and I head over to wait. My kiddo was right at the front, close enough to look the sloth in the eye. Karen was standing to the right of my kiddo. Her son, who looked to be about 11 years old, comes shooting through the crowd and stands right in front of my kid. My kid has a list of neurological disorders and can't yet navigate the finer points of social interaction, so she freezes and starts to tear up. The following exchange occurs. EM entitled mum. EK entitled kid. Me. Excuse me. You're standing in front of my daughter. Kid. Dumbfounded look but doesn't move. Me. Hey bud, could you please move to your right? You're blocking my daughter. Kid. Decided to give his balls a tug and replied. So. Me. So. Don't be rude. Move please. Karen. In Hindi to EK. Ignore this stupid slut son. Me. Pushes my kid forward in front of a shut kid. Then quietly to EM in Hindi. Auntie. This white slut knows Hindi. Shit-eating grin. M grabs EK and hot-foots it out of the crowd. Today's lesson, kids. Don't assume someone doesn't speak a language because they are a different ethnicity. My husband is in the army, so your house is mine now. So where I live there's a small army base, and around it is a housing estate where the families live. Part of this estate was sold to a couple of housing associations, and I live in one of those. The army families move around a lot, so people in those houses generally move every 2 years or so, some a little more frequently, others less so. There's a row of 4 terrace houses directly across from me, and one of them was empty, ready for new tenants. Here's where we begin. I took my daughter to nursery, and then went shopping for some new clothes. This was at 9 AM. I get back about 11:30 AM, and see a large moving truck in the street. To avoid them, I go to the other side of my property. I suffer from chronic anxiety and tend to avoid most people. I go in the front door, and take the new clothes upstairs to sort. Whilst I'm there, I hear noise from my back garden and door. Looking out the window, I see a man with a large toolbox trying to open my back door, a woman behind him looking furious, and the guys from the moving company standing around with boxes looking bored. I run down the stairs and open the door, meaning the guy, who I guessed was a locksmith, practically fell through the door into my kitchen. He was surprised, of course, and after looking around he was confused, because clearly, someone already lived here. The woman then sighs dramatically and thanks me for finally turning up because they've been there since 8 AM trying to get in. She just wants to get her stuff in so she and her kids can sleep. She waves the moving guys forward, and then goes to get her kids out of her car. I'm busy trying to stop the moving guys from coming in with boxes, and her 2 kids, about 3 and 6, come charging into my garden. I've got a slide, swing, small trampoline and Wendy house there for my daughter to play with. I yell at them all to get out of my garden and stay away from my house. One of the movers looks in the window to my living room, sees all of my furniture in there, and waves his team back to the truck. His team leader pulls out some paperwork and begins going over it. The woman starts yelling at me, telling me I was a liar and a thief among other things. I've lived in this house for 4 years, and tell her such, but she's having none of it. She gets right up in my face, screaming at me, and I'm having trouble not bursting into tears and running away, or decking her. The locksmith tries to calm her down and she starts having a go at him next. I call up the local police station office. There's one in the housing estate, but it generally only caters to the army people and such. I figured calling them to deal with her was the best solution. They arrive after a few minutes and take the woman aside. Her kids are still playing on my daughter's things, so I tell them to get off and go to their mother because those toys don't belong to them. They go reluctantly, and when their mother notices, she begins yelling again. Apparently those toys aren't mine. They were put there by the army for her kids because her husband is such a wonderful soldier. That this is her house and I'm just some squatter trying to steal it from her. This is when the movers come over and tell her this is the wrong address. She's moving into number 4, and this is number 14. She goes very silent, grabs her kids and leaves the garden. I call out to ask her if she's going to pay for the damage done to my garden. Grass torn up by her kids and the movers, my door, from what looks like footprints trying to kick it in, and the scratches from the locksmith. My bushes by the gate. Movers and her yanking at them whilst waiting for the locksmith. She tells me no, because she's done nothing wrong, which is when I inform her that I have cameras installed that would have seen the whole thing. I ask the officers if they would like to view the footage, and one of them watches the whole incident take place once I bring out my laptop, which both cameras are linked to, and he says he doesn't have anything to collect the footage just now, but he'll come back later to get it. He also tells me that he will have to report the woman's behavior to the base, as a family's bad behavior can have repercussions for their soldiers too. It's now 5 p.m. The officer was here collecting copies of the footage in case it was needed, and might be shown to certain army officials as an example of her behavior. Husband turned up about an hour ago, and there was a huge argument across the street. Everyone could hear it, but not exactly what was being said. Either way, this family hasn't exactly had a good start to their time here. I can only hope they move away soon so I won't have to deal with that woman again. Please subscribe if you like the video. It really helps the channel to grow. Adios.